What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Chris. If you've not been here before, welcome. If you have been here, welcome back. Today, I am changing it up a little bit. We are going to talk about motivational states and how that can equal exercise. I have a special guest here today, a friend of mine from about 10 years ago, and he's going to bring some serious knowledge to everyone and explain how our thoughts and our motivational states can actually yield more exercise and or movement of the human body. I'm really excited for this, and this should be a good one. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I have a special guest today here with me, my buddy I've known for 10 years. His name is Matt Stults. He's a Ph.D. He works at Yale-New Haven Hospital as an exercise physiologist with a Ph.D. in Kinesiology by the way of University of Texas. And what Matt does there is he works with patients post-surgery for the most part, if I'm not mistaken.
Both before surgery and after surgery, bariatric surgery.
So can you explain to us what bariatric surgery is? Maybe let's help everyone understand exactly what you do. And then we're going to talk about the motivational states of your patients.
Sure. So bariatric surgery is a weight loss procedures. There are two major ones that we employ at Yale-New Haven Hospital, both the gastric sleeve and the gastric bypass. These surgeries help to both cause restriction. So you're taking in less calories, you're taking in less food, thus losing weight. And then the gastric bypass also results in malabsorption of nutrients. So again, you're not taking in as many carbohydrates, you're not absorbing carbohydrates, you're losing weight really, really rapidly. The surgery is a very powerful effect. People lose a lot of weight really, really fast with bariatric surgery. A lot of people keep off a lot of weight for a really long time. A lot of people don't realize is that there are two other major components to the bariatric surgery process, and one is a very strict diet, a very specific diet that they have to employ for a few weeks before the surgery, long-term after the surgery, and then they need to move more. They need to exercise. The reason we have exercise physiologists in bariatric surgery programs is because exercise gets really complicated with bariatric surgery. We want our patients to move more before the surgery, but then they're on a diet, they're on lower calories, it makes it harder to move, right? Like if you've ever dieted and you're really low in carbohydrates, you know, like it dampens your motivation to exercise. And then they have the surgery, they have to go through early ambulation after the surgery, and then there's this staged process by which they start exercising again. They start with walking, then they get 2 weeks clearance, they can exercise more vigorously, they can do a different variety of exercise routines. And then the first 6 months of really focusing on cardio, incorporating some weight training, and then after 6 months. So there's sort of stages, you could say, with exercise before, immediately after the surgery, medium term after the surgery, and then long term. So because it's complicated enough, they have exercise physiologists. And so I help patients to move more and move safely before and after their surgeries.
Interesting. So it sounds like it's a pretty, I don't want to say, I don't know if the right word is invasive, but, and if it's not, please correct me, but it sounds like a very invasive surgery.
Yeah. Well, we call it minimally invasive. Technically, it's called minimally invasive because it's a laparoscopic procedure. So you have 5 to 6 tiny little incisions in your abdomen. Yeah, there's a major cut to your stomach. Well over half of your stomach is removed, and then if you're getting the bypass, then there's some rewiring of the intestines. So it's a major procedure, but it's minimally invasive. The recovery time is pretty fast, and I would say probably an average patient only goes home with one opioid after surgery. So it's not an extremely painful procedure for the most part. It's kind of like getting your gallbladder removed.
Understood.
Okay.
I think the primary emphasis on this discussion would be how you work with the individuals after their surgery, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Okay. So when these individual, and I say individuals, should I call them patients?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
They're patients.
All right. So when your patients, okay, when you're working with your patients after their surgery, they're coming to you to understand how to exercise primarily.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to basically not only teach them how to exercise, but to really teach them how to look at the state of exercise in the depth of it, fundamentally from the motivational standpoints.
Yeah, a lot of what I do is motivating people. So, the term.
I mean, I'm motivated right now.
Right.
Can we just go work out?
I think we should do the show
We
first.
should do the show?
Yeah.
All right, fine,
Then we could go work out.
Fine. I'll work out later. All right, fine.
Yeah, so I'm an exercise physiologist, but so there's that word physiology, right? You think it's all about the physiology, but a lot of exercise physiologists come into the profession and they soon realize, probably just like yourself, that it's really more about the psychology and it's more about motivation than anything else, right?
Absolutely.
You've been a trainer for a really long time, and you know how it's easy to work with certain clients, right? They're highly motivated, they're ready to go, they get in the gym, they're ready to do that first set, and you're almost just sort of like guiding them through a workout. And then there's other individuals, you've probably experienced this as well, where it's like almost painful, like you're really trying to push or motivate a person and they're just not there, right?
Of course.
So I feel like the physiology I was able to get down pretty quickly and master, during my studies, but the psychology and actually motivating people requires you to know people, and to know them as a person and to know how the mind works, or at least try to understand how the mind works. And one of the problems with bariatric surgery is that it's stressful. A lot of people go into surgery not realizing how stressful it is, how complicated it is, how many moving parts and components there is to the surgery. And they get wrapped up in all the aspects of the surgery, their life changes, the transition they're going to go to, all the changes in their diet, their sleep, and their lifestyle. So I need to keep it as simple as possible for their exercise in order to motivate them just to do anything to move. And we provide them with a lot of education as well, so that they can understand how to break it down easily and make it simple for themselves and make it manageable for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As a trainer, I mean, I don't actively train, and I haven't in many, many years, but someone who's been around the environment of working with people in the gym setting, as a trainer, we would always think that the ideal client is the athlete. Mm-hmm. Is the one that comes in and is just like, just beat the shit out of me, please. Right. Which you may not experience to that capacity, especially for the surgeries that they're going through. However, the psychology would probably be similar in the sense of, I'm here, I'm ready, let's go. And I take it as, from what I'm picking up, what you're putting down, the majority of the people that you probably work with are the latter, or the opposite. They might be unmotivated primarily because of stress?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah, it's really funny. Like, we can actually take this back very personally, because the reason we met, Chris, was actually I joined a gym.
Educate them, Matt.
And you were my trainer.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually how we met. And if you recall, we had like 20 sessions or something like that. I think we did 2 sets of 10 pack of 10.
You remember exactly what you paid for. Intriguing. I love
remember
it.
We did a set of 10, and then we did another set of 10, and then you kind of convinced me that maybe I should do a show. And as a way, you have a very way of convincing people to do things.
Okay.
And so I got a little bit into that, but I had a very stressful event happen in my life. I don't know if you remember this, but my apartment flooded.
I do remember this.
Okay.
And you were like arguably getting pretty shredded, if I recall.
I was getting really shredded. Yes, I was on this amazing shredding plan. I was essentially carb cycling.
Yes.
Okay, so you had me on this car, I wasn't even having an apple on certain days. And I was doing cardio really early in the morning, first thing, and I was shredding up really fast. But the problem is I hit a wall because I had 15 inches of raw sewage in my apartment.
Mm.
And it's very, very difficult to focus on your training when you have such a, like when you're surrounded by filth and you're basically living out of your car for a few days, then your landlord puts you up in his place. And I struggled through it, and I kept with you for a few weeks. And then I told you, you know what? I just can't keep doing this training with you because I can't prioritize my exercise at all. I really need to just get my life back in order.
Understandably. Was I at least empathetic 10 years ago?
Yeah, you were empathetic, but I think it was hard for you to sort of see and understand and visualize like what it was like to have so much, like a foot of raw sewage.
Yeah.
And having to I mean, it's just hard for anybody.
Yeah. Unless you've lived in third world countries where it's kind of normal.
Right. Yeah. So I was kind of freaking out. My mind was just shot. I could not focus on. I mean, like I could exercise as stress relief. I was using exercise as a stress relief, but I wasn't getting any high quality training in because of just that tremendous life stress in my life at the time. And the funny thing is that I actually did a dissertation on the topic of stress.
After you flooded?
This was before.
Oh,
this
okay.
Was before. So my Ph.D. dissertation was on the effects of stress on exercise. And so I knew a lot about stress because I studied stress. What I didn't know so much about was how that stress really wrecks your motivation.
Yeah. You know, coming from someone who understands stress, from having or had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, I understand the concept of stress, absolutely. And the external stress factors, say in your case of having shit in your apartment, which doesn't sound very appetizing to say the least, could definitely recourse your thought process and or become extraordinarily stressful. You know, then 10 years ago, was that 10 years ago?
That was 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Then I probably couldn't conceptualize like putting myself in someone else's perspective of living in that. And I was probably like mostly disappointed because of how far you had come. Not that you were losing ground per se, but you were getting so close. Right. To the goal that we had, the motivational goal that we had, and then all of a sudden, something virtually life-changing, you know, happened. At least to the way that you were living your life.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the biggest implications of losing my apartment for 3 weeks as it was being cleaned up was I didn't have a kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, so you had me on this extremely regimented diet plan, but there was no way to, how do you measure your protein?
Of course.
You know, how do you like, you know, I was struggling every day with, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store and get some food, but where does that go? Like what fridge is that going to go in? So, you know, training for competition requires, you know, so much more than the exercise. I was still able to get to the gym and exercise. It was really, interestingly, it was the diet plan that was just completely wrecked. And I was eating a couple meals a day in Cody's Diner on Water Street in New Haven.
Oh boy!
And you know,
during daylight hours.
During daylight hours mostly, but you know, they get you. You know, you'd ask for an omelet. You try to make it as healthy as possible, and like just very little cheese or whatever. I was trying to stick to the diet plan. Of course, they always ask you, do you want some hash browns with it? You know, and when you're so really stressed out, there are days you're like, yeah, I want the hash browns.
Of course.
But, you know,
emotional eating.
So you have all this emotional eating. And so we're going back to this concept of motivation and what did I want? I found like, well, under such high stress, there are certain things that suddenly I was very sensitive to that I wanted a lot, like carbohydrates. I really wanted carbohydrates.
Considering your body naturally thrives off them, yeah, of course.
Right, because my body's in this like really highly stressed state. It needs energy, right? You know, the whole point of stress is it's a crisis of energy. That's essentially what chronic stress is. It's a crisis of energy, and so I think it's just very natural for the human mind to seek for energy. Right, so you're looking for carbohydrates, but then you're minimizing energy too. So you're sleeping more. I just found myself in my car during lunch break, just crashing, for 30 minutes and sleeping in my car during lunch breaks. And so that crisis of energy is pretty profound, especially like if you're training for a competition where it takes so much mental energy.
Yeah.
You have to plan out your sort of like entire day. Well, I didn't have enough energy to plan out my entire day. I just had to plan, where am I going to get my next meal? Like where am I going to sleep tonight?
Yeah.
Are there going to be am I going to be surrounded by any sewage or bugs or anything like that?
Not to mention mental energy. I mean, you were in a caloric deficit and for, I don't know exactly how long, but a good period of time, which means that, the glycogen levels stored within your body, let alone your mind's thriving off of it, was compromised. Your thought process could have been slightly hindered given the fact that you weren't starving, but you were on a diet.
Right. I wasn't starving, but I was on a diet. And, I mean, with the carb cycling, there were some days when there was a couple days a week, I think it was like almost on like no carbohydrates.
Yeah.
My Sundays.
Was it that low?
I mean, I don't know. There was like, I distinctly remember my Sundays were like one cup of oatmeal was my entire carb intake for an entire Sunday or something.
That's about 45 grams of carbs plus tag-alongs. Yeah, so that was a very low carb day.
Yeah, so it really, so it was really, really difficult for me to manage.
I don't recommend that. Don't do that. By the way, if you're listening, that's not going to solve your problems.
But that's what I was doing.
Which is tough.
Right.
So you have this shit-filled apartment. Mm-hmm. You decide that competing is no longer in the deck for you, in the cards for you, I should say.
Right.
Where did that bring you?
It took me about a year to recover from that. I mean, another complicating factor was that I started a brand new job the day after the flood happened. So I had a new job. My apartment's flooded. I'm living in my car in my landlord's house because he wasn't there at the time. I think I tried to hang on to the competition goal for about a week, and then I approached you and said, I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And it took me over a year before I even would consider, a competition again. And I actually haven't, then I got involved with Spartan races and so on and so forth. And I went a completely different direction.
So you did your competitions just in a different format.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the Spartan competitions?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good distraction. It's a lot of fun. It's outdoors. You're working out with other people. Yeah, sure. There's a great social environment.
Good. Mm-hmm. Good. And then to kind of fast forward, we've always remained friends.
Yeah.
However, you reached out to me, about 6 months ago?
Maybe.
Yeah, about 6 months ago at best. It was probably more like 4 or 5. But I don't know the exact time frame, probably around the new year. Right. And had some questions for me when it came to my perspective on health, if you will.
Yep.
And we started discussing this topic.
Yes, because I had just started publishing some new articles on motivation around the same time.
And you're known in the industry for your research.
Yeah. My name gets thrown around a few times.
Very modest of you. Very modest of you.
But mainly on my research on stress.
Right.
So my dissertation was on the idea that when you're highly stressed, it prolongs the recovery time.
Of course.
So my dissertation helped to prove this, that high high stress or chronic stress, enduring stress, it saps you of energy and it prolongs the recovery from vigorous exercise.
Would that be the elevated cortisol production?
So yeah, I mean that definitely is something that would first come to mind is elevations in glucocorticoids. We actually measured inflammation, inflammatory cytokines. And we found that people who are chronically stressed have like a blunted or dampened or less optimal production of inflammation. So like an exhausted profile. So when you're stressed for a really long time, sure, glucocorticoids, cortisol, inflammation, it can go higher, but eventually your body just can't keep producing it. It just exhausts and it just sort of drops again. Okay, so that's called like a blunted effect. So what we found is that people who are chronically stressed, they're always facing, trials and tribulations in their lives. Their body just can't it's not responsive. Let's just say it just doesn't respond as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So typically that means like not being able to work out as effectively. But what we showed in my dissertation is that even on days that you are able to work out effectively, you still have a longer recovery process.
Because of the overall inflamed aspect of the state of mind and body.
The really sort of like inflamed, like it's chronically inflamed, just exhausted.
Okay. So the exhaustion.
Yeah, it's an exhaustion.
The stress, the exhaustion.
The exhaustion
Okay.
of the energy systems.
Okay.
Yep.
See, this is where not only you guys might be learning, however, I'm learning.
Mhm.
You know, I'm learning the scientific jargon when it comes to your area of expertise. Like, I understand the concept. Like, I can understand the concept. The micro aspect of it, this is really good articulation of exactly why, you know, people that I've worked with in the past, even being a gym owner, right, having thousands of clients or customers, people that were heavily stressed, I never really understood it to the depth that you're explaining it right now. So that would really make sense, that stress basically equals unmotivated action.
Yeah, I mean, well, and then it motivates other things. So, like, unmotivated for physical activity, for exercise, but you know, if it's a crisis of energy, then you probably want to sleep more. You probably want to rest more. You're prioritizing sleep or, you know, couch surfing over exercise, and you probably have increased cravings for pizza, for sweets, for highly fatty things, for highly sweet things, for salty things. And so, I mean, we just know that's true based on a preponderance of scientific research that when you're stressed, you're much more likely to eat highly palatable foods, you know, fatty foods, sugary foods. Your brain is just more sensitive to them. So if I put in front of you a bunch of grapes and carrots, and then I put right next to that, you know, cookies and brownies, if you're highly stressed, you're much more likely to choose the cookies and the brownies than you are the carrots, the grapes, unless
you make a cookie look like a carrot.
Or there's a variety of ways you could do it. One time I had a roommate who would always raid the refrigerator and eat all my food. This is back when I lived in Milwaukee a long time ago. And just a weird side story. The only way I was able to get him from eating my food was to put green food coloring on it.
To make it look healthy?
No, to make it look disgusting.
Oh, not like healthy, like lettuce or
like moldy.
Oh, I see. That would do it.
So if you had a brownie, but you had some green food coloring on it, it looked like it could be a little bit. So that's one way, and it worked. It worked everything. He never ate my food ever again.
Well, that's like food reverse psychology.
I guess so. but normally, yeah, you. I mean, we're more likely, even under the best of times, right? Even if you're like completely carefree and you're not stressed, you are more likely to choose the brownie over the carrots and the grapes, right?
Sure.
But when you're highly, highly stressed, there's something that changes in your brain to make it much more likely that you're going to choose the brownies over the carrots and the grapes. And I guess one thing that we can take from this is that there are ways to exert self-control. I mean, we know people do that, right? There are people, we know these people, right? You know people who will always choose the grapes and the carrots, and they will not choose the brownie. They can control their impulses.
What's up, Mom? Mom's a true listener from day one.
I don't know her personally, but I know who she is from my years at the gym. She seems to have like amazing self-discipline and self-control. And I imagine that she would always choose the. So some people do have better impulse control.
Sure.
Yeah. So they can control their impulses better. You know, I'm just using her as an example again. Maybe she has the impulse, you know, to eat the brownie, but for some reason she's able to stop that either through something like a goal, perhaps.
Right.
You know, so
whatever the motivation is.
Whatever the motivation is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think fundamentally discipline and control would be the precursor to, you know, not choosing, quote unquote, the brownie over the carrot. However, as my knowledge has expanded, especially over the past decade, and I don't believe there is one best diet. I don't believe that. I believe the best diet is the one that works for the individual, right? let's say keto works best for you. I don't recommend keto. However, if that's what works for you, fantastic. And paleo is what works for me, fantastic. However, the measuring of the calories has really morphed over the years to this concept of just basically intaking the proper macronutrients and less of a focus on the exact food source for very active individuals, which I've worked with. Your patient and my patient, quote unquote, are going to be very different demographics. However, I think there could be a little bit of bleed over from the understanding of, like, quote unquote, if it fits your macros, in the sense that you can still eat the brownie. You just have to know the macronutrients and calories to the size of the brownie you're eating. For instance, you're at the gas station, right? And you see the brownie on the counter by the checkout, right? And it has a barcode on it. You can scan that barcode, and those macros, like that 5 grams of protein, that 25 grams of carbs, and 10 grams of fat, just subtract from your overall calories for the day. I know I'm kind of digressing, and feel free to contradict me, but with the athletic individual that my companies work with or have worked with in the past, the overall measuring of calories and macros, allowing the individual to have some if they so choose, just being conscious of the overall calorie mark for the day being the most important aspect, has always really, really worked when it comes to eliminating, say, binge eating of, the whole tray of fucking brownies.
Yeah. I think key here, important here is, a lot of people just are not empowered with that information. They don't even, so they don't even know to scan the barcode. And how would you evaluate that? What does that mean? 10 grams of carbohydrates or 20 grams of carbohydrates. What is, 10 grams of fat? What is that? A lot of people aren't empowered with that information. So that's really, really unfortunate. I think in the case of that brownie, it's probably going to be more like 30 grams of fat and
of course, and more and more butter, more and more fat,
2 grams of protein. Yeah. But I kind of use a similar approach, from the macronutrient standpoint. I try to prioritize my protein and my servings of fruits and vegetables, so I find, like, when I focus on just a few things, getting my protein and my quality protein and getting my servings of fruits and vegetables, then typically there's less room for all of the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can practice an approach where you're either trying to avoid something, like you're trying to avoid fat, or maybe you're practicing an approach of, well, you're approaching something. You're approaching, you're trying to get in your protein. You're trying to get in your fruits and vegetables. Of course, in reality, it's a mixture of all these things. But sure. I think nonetheless, there's our goals. There's planning. There's goals. There's educating yourself. But then there's this whole idea of just, again, things that you want.
Yes.
And managing your wants, because we're constantly, like, bombarded by things that we want, and some people are manage their wants or their desires better than other people. So in the case of, like, the carrots and the grapes versus the brownies, if they're both in front of you, well, maybe one strategy is, well, you just remove the brownies.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind. So then maybe you don't want, right? So you don't want them anymore. Mm-hmm. If you're going to the, maybe you avoid
that approach works for me.
They're both out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
You try to avoid the convenience stores where it's like there's, like, candy and brownies, like, all over. I mean, sometimes it's hard to avoid these places, but
the intriguing part is, if I want something, I'll go to the convenience store and have one serving, rather than going to the grocery store and having a box of cookies.
Okay.
You see, not that it really matters what works for me, but if I'm going to have a treat, it's going to be a single serving or maybe 2 servings of such, controlling myself by only buying that much, mm-hmm. rather than bringing the box of Oreos in and taking out the whole fucking thing, which I've been known to do in my earlier years.
Yeah, I mean, the single serving sweets is much more manageable. Like the bag of chocolates, where each chocolate is individually wrapped.
Right.
Then you can just eat like one.
Right.
As opposed to the bag of Oreos, where you open it up and there's all of them.
Right.
And it's so easy to overeat them. So yeah, I use a similar approach.
So going back to like movement as a want, how would you shift your patient's thought process to becoming movement as a want for them? Let's say that they're not wanting to move, exercise specifically. When you're working with a patient, how do you get that to come? How do you bring that out of them?
Right. Well, typically we want things that we like.
Yep.
So helping people to like to move, to like to be active, to like to exercise. And actually there's all these terms are kind of loaded, right? I mean, just the word exercise, people could instantly think, ugh, exercise. I don't like to exercise. Well, maybe they don't like to exercise, but they like to move, they like to be active. Maybe I could sort of reframe the question, to help them to realize that they actually do like to move.
So fundamental reframing in psychology.
Right. They don't like to exercise because this word exercise means they're conjuring back these ideas of being in a gym when they were a kid in junior high school. They didn't like that. Exercise wasn't fun. It was too competitive. There's too much judgment. There's too much pressure. So I try to reframe it for them to think more about physical activity first, and just enjoying the movement. Okay.
Right.
I mean, what's the activity that the majority of people enjoy to start off with is walking. So if I have to start with a walking program, I'm going to start with a walking program. And I'm going to try to make it as easy for them as possible and as enjoyable for them as possible, so that they can learn to like movement. And then if they're going to like it, they're going to want more of it, at least theoretically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you basically reframe it from unmotivated to understanding that their primary like or wants might be walking, and kind of step them from there, if that's what I'm gathering. Is there like an additional point to where you get them moving and walking to exercise specifically, like say gym exercise?
Yeah, so it's almost like exposing people. It's exposure. It's like an exposure to physical activity and to movement. Like in the surgical process, they start with early ambulation. They start with just walking through the hospital. Then the next day, they're home. They're just being lightly active at home. Then they start with 10 minutes of walking in the morning. They start with 10 minutes of walking in the afternoon. If they feel really good, they can do all 20 minutes at the same time. If they don't enjoy walking outside, they can just march in place. Giving people options, giving people choices. So maybe the context, they don't like walking outside. People tell me I don't feel safe outside, or it's too cold outside, or it's raining. Okay, well, can you even just march in place while you're watching television? Because then maybe it's more enjoyable. Maybe
that's a nice rebuttal.
So
you can't really say no to that.
Right. Well, so we basically make it so that they can't say no.
Yeah.
They can't say no to the exercise. And then a lot of people will say, well, is that really exercise? Is marching in place exercise? Is walking exercise? Well, I mean, this is technically exercise.
Sure.
I mean, I'm excising my finger right now. Right. I mean, is it very good exercise? No. I mean, it might be good for my finger. It's not whole body exercise. It's not burning a lot of calories. But so I'm just trying to help people to rethink like exercise. They don't have to go to the gym and do this grueling workout that hurts. Right. A lot of people associate exercise with hurt, no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, it doesn't have to hurt.
No, it does not.
It can be enjoyable. You can do things that you like, that you prefer to do that, and then if you do that, you're going to want more of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that, in a much different perspective. As a gym owner, I would actually preach that you don't have to come to the gym to exercise. Walk outside, run outside, hike outside, bike outside. I'm not big, but I'm a recreational paddleboard, wakeboard, canoe, kayak, anything. The body requires motion. You don't necessarily have to hurt yourself in the gym to progress. However, doing something, in my opinion, in life, let alone exercise, is always better than nothing. Much like you saying march in place if you can't walk outside. Something is better than nothing, especially when it comes to movement for the body.
Yeah, if your goal is fitness, you want to get as fit as possible. Well, it's gonna hurt, right? Right. But if your goal is simply to get healthy exercise in, to get healthy physical activity in, it doesn't necessarily have to hurt. I mean, you can build your stress tolerance to the point where you can do more challenging exercise. Okay, you can prepare your body for more challenging exercise, and that's going to hurt. But hopefully, throughout that process, you're mentally able to meet that challenge. Right. Some people know, some people they can't. But for my patients who have really bad knee problems or really bad hip problems, almost any type of lower body exercise really hurts them. So I try to find machines that are going to minimize the pain for them and maximize the pleasure, like something like a SciFit at Planet Fitness, or a New Step machine, or an upper arm ergometry, or swimming, or something like that. So we try to choose the right modality, the right exercise mode for them, so they can.
Which is important, not only for recovery but in life. Figuring out what's best for you and exercise-wise and performing.
Right.
Yeah, that's very well said. Remember, there's also the other individual, okay? And when I say other individual, let's say 26-year-old Chris Warnes, that you met as a personal trainer that was many things. However, one thing that he was the guy that went to the gym 6 to 7, if not 8 days a week somehow.
Right.
Because he consulted with Jeff Bezos on how to get that 8th day in the week. Because I don't know if you guys know that, but Jeff Bezos has like a 10-day week.
All right.
Completely kidding. Anyways, the guy that's like overly addicted to the gym and just like, flexes in the mirror and like pulling his shirt up to look at his abs and doing like the quad shake, looking at like the separation of the quads and so on and so forth. What would you say when it comes to that guy? Is he or she overly addicted to exercise, or the thought of exercise, or... educate us.
Well,
use me as the example.
So I'd see you at 26. I knew you then at that time, and I'd say, okay, this guy must like exercise. He must like fitness. He wants exercise. He wants fitness. So you have like an optimal like motivational profile. However, there is a certain point where you can cross the line, and you can become addicted to fitness, addicted to exercise. And when we think about addiction, we think in terms of someone who wants it really, really bad.
Addicted to the gains.
There you go. They're addicted to the gains. They want it. But they get to a point where they're working so hard, they're enduring so much pain, it's so grueling, they don't even necessarily like it anymore. Okay, so it's the person who's just pushing through it. They're pushing through it day after day after day. They don't take any recovery time. They're in the gym every single day. And after a while, like you said some time ago, you just sort of, you scratch your head and you ask yourself, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep enduring all of this grueling pain and this work and depriving myself of calories? And like, I get to look at myself in the mirror and look really good, and other people admire me, but what does that really get me? Okay, so you're faced with that question. So in other words, the addiction could eventually lead to burnout. A state of overtraining and just total burnout. And then burnout is essentially just a catastrophic motivational loss.
Sure.
Right. And we've all been there. I've been classically burnout twice in my life, where I just worked out so hard that I just couldn't even do it anymore. I wanted it, but I didn't like it.
Right.
In fact, it was more than just not liking it. It was actively disliking it. Disliking going to the gym. I
think we spoke at that point.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So I knew you, several years ago when I was going through one of these periods when I wanted it, but I didn't like it. And I got to the point where I actually disliked it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I had an aversion to it.
Sure.
I had an aversion to go. And so then you face the choice of just not going anymore, just not doing it anymore, and just letting yourself completely go. So there has to be this balance, right? It's great if you want fitness, if you want to exercise, but if you want it too much, you could want it too much, right?
Yeah.
There's a certain point.
Absolutely.
And the fitness enthusiasts typically face that.
Yeah.
And they have to make some choices.
Yep.
Like, do they taper back to their training? Do they cut down their days at the gym? Do they include more recovery time? Do they start cross-training and doing other types of exercise?
That was always my answer.
Right. Do you
Switch the modality.
Switch the modality? Do you start working out outdoors more? Do you join a new fitness club or start working out with a fitness buddy? Or you have to do something to switch it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking off, my history is, my mother, she taught me how to work out when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. So I've been working out with weights for 24 years. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it's very monotonous and mundane to me just to go into the gym and work out. So I like to incorporate lots of different styles. And over the years, I threw mixed martial arts in and jiu-jitsu in, which was really fun. And then I got addicted to that and I started competing, and then I was ranked top in the world. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. I need something else,
Yep.
And then I started paddleboarding and running and trail running and so on and so forth. So as you're sitting here describing who I was, I very well might actually still be that person to a degree. And it's good to be able to be in the student chair and learn, because after 24 years of exercising, it's safe to say I have a good understanding of it, considering I went to school for exercise science and nutrition at one point. And being a lifetime practitioner, being able to help and educate others. However, I think really balance is what it comes down to. A proper balanced diet, a proper balanced exercise routine, and self-care routine when it comes not only to the physical self-care of stretching, foam rolling, resting, maybe hot tubbing or ice bathing, depending on how you look at it, but also internal self-care when it comes to your mind, body and soul.
Mm-hmm. The important thing is to maintain your habit of exercise. So too many people just completely give it up, and then I hear this from my patients. I was an avid exerciser 10 years ago, and then I just stopped. So maintaining your healthy habits somehow, but giving yourself a break as well, and just completely switching it up. I'm able to enjoy the gym more because now I do outdoor workouts. Mm-hmm. Every Thursday and Sunday I do outdoor workouts.
Nice.
And I find that I enjoy my gym time much more.
Because you're in the gym less.
Because I'm in the gym less.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to do something less in order to enjoy it more.
Agreed.
Right. That definitely goes for the gym. I think there are times when you go to a gym as well that you just need to have sort of like open time or sort of like play time, when you just go into the gym and you follow your impulses in the gym.
Yep.
If you see the stretching area and that looks good and looks interesting to you and relaxing, you go do that. Yep. And then maybe you do something completely different. You're interested in the bench press all of a sudden, and you go do that. But you're allowing yourself to follow your impulses in the gym and just sort of be open with your workout experience, because a lot of us have such structured workouts.
I train the way that you're describing. I just flow.
You just flow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have an overly regimented workout. Okay. Well, yeah. So, overly regimented workouts can help you to achieve fitness gains quickly, but it may not be sustainable for years.
Sure.
Right. So what I do in my case is I change my rep range every week. So this week I'm focusing on a 9 RM for most of my sets, whereas I'm reaching failure at the 9th repetition. Mm-hmm. Next week,
that's relatively heavy.
So pretty high volume, high training volume. But the next week is going to be a 10. The week after that will be 11, then a 12. But then I'm going to suddenly drop all the way down to a 2 or 3.
Yeah, almost like a reverse deload.
Right. And it really shocks my body, but it gives me just enough variation week to week. and then over a 3 or 4 month cycle that I can maintain my interest.
And you don't get stagnant.
And I don't get too stagnant.
Smart.
So I keep the want.
It's like you're a scientist or something.
Yeah, I know, right?
He didn't want me to call him doctor, however we could.
Well, yeah, I'm a PhD, and but you need variation.
Sure.
The human mind, the human body needs variation in order to maintain interest. In order, a lot of problems with our bariatric patients is that their diet plans get so overly regimented. They get sick of their diet plan. It's a perfect diet plan, but they find that they're really struggling because of just the intense monotony.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's just inherent to bariatric surgery, unfortunately. There's a lot of monotony in the diet. It's unbearable for some people. Some people can tolerate it. But in general, yes, the human body, the human mind likes variation. So finding the variation, but yet maintaining the healthy habits that will lead you to a healthy life. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the key.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people find professionals to work with to help teach them that.
Right.
Whether it's a personal trainer or a physical therapist or a chiropractor or a scientist at Yale or whatever, nutritionist, it's a matter of just facilitating education.
Yeah, and doing a lot of the hard work for you, and with the planning.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot today. Did you learn anything?
I learned a lot more about you.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to me. It's just another chapter in the book, or different chapter in the book, depending on how you look at it. And I learned a lot today. I hope everyone listening learned a lot today, especially when it comes to the fundamentals of getting the body to move. It's coming from the lens of focus of maybe having a little bit of difficulty moving or finding that motivation. I believe that we covered a wide variety of lens of focuses and topics here. And, Matt, if you would be so honorable to leave everyone with maybe a few words to sum up today's show and help them help them find the motivation to get the body moving with exercise, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, we all know about all the benefits of exercise and movement and how important it is for your mental health and for your physical health. We all know that. But allowing yourself to experience that, right? We live in stressful times. You can use your exercise break to de-stress, to make your life more fun, to make it more pleasurable, to make your life more meaningful and purposeful, to give you a healthier life. I think part of the problem that people have right now is just all of the stress that they're living under right now. They're bombarded with other choices as well, YouTube and the grocery store and television and so on and so forth. So decluttering your life, decluttering your mind, maybe decluttering your social media, allow yourself to experience these natural desires or wants for movement, listening to these desires and wants, taking action, being active when you're most likely to want to be active is also important. So if your energy levels is really good during the afternoon around 3 o'clock, then you take advantage of that to get your exercise routine in, to get your physical activity in. Don't prioritize that for other things.
Sure.
So when you have good energy, when you feel good, you're much more likely to move. Take advantage of those times to move.
Yes, mine is 7 a.m.
7 a.m.
Yep, for me.
Not for me.
No, not for you.
No, it's like 4 p.m.
4 p.m.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for those words, and thank you for being here, and thank you for everything that you offered. I think it's definitely an excellent lens of focus, definitely excellent perspective, and I really appreciate you coming on the show and helping.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, man. I think
Thanks, Chris.
Of course. And I wish you all the best with your journey and your research and helping people.
Thank you. And same to you. Good luck with your business and with the show. And can't wait to listen to 106, 107, 108, 109
Oh, yeah.
All right.
All the good ones.
Yep.
All right, dude. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys. That was the show for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Big thank you to Matt. Appreciate you coming by, dude. And I just want to express my gratitude for each and every one of you guys. Thank you for those likes. Thank you for those subscriptions. If you haven't at this time yet, smash that like button, hit subscribe, support your boy. Let's build this community. Let's talk. If you have questions, if you have comments, drop them in the comments below. And let's talk about what you guys think when it comes to motivation and finding it, when it all comes down to how we facilitate our thoughts and how it can equal motivation. I'll catch you guys next time.